right. Hi, Andy. Welcome to Automate All the Things.
Hey, Aaron. Really happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, how about we start as we always do on the stream? Tell folks a little bit about yourself, about Data Fetcher, and how you came to sync all the things.
Sure. Sounds good. Yeah. So I'm a software developer by trade. I'm currently doing freelance software development. So a mixture of like front end stuff for the web and actually Airtable apps as well. But I actually came to build Data Fetcher last summer. So I had a kind of problem where I was trying to pull in financial data into Airtable. And yeah, I couldn't see like an easy way to do it. Everything seemed to be like really roundabout, and I kind of gave up on it. And then a couple of months later, I was looking for kind of an idea for like a new side project to kind of build on the side. I was on Product Hunt and I stumbled across a Google Sheets add-on called
Mm-hmm.
API Connector, which has been around for a few years. It's quite successful. It's got like 100,000 users and stuff. Um, and it was around the time that Airtable were just launching the Blocks contest. Blocks, which is what apps were known as before they were apps. And so the kind of penny dropped, and I thought maybe I could build a version of this for Airtable. So that was kind of like last September, and then it was about a month of like development to make it, a couple of months of App Store review. It was one of the very first
Mm-hmm.
apps on the app marketplace, and so there was a lot of unanswered like security questions and stuff, and it was quite a long process,
Right.
which is much quicker now, I should say. And then yeah, launched last November, and I've been kind of steadily growing it since then.
Yeah. So I guess maybe a good, like, folks watching may be aware of what it is in API, what is syncing. So maybe, summarize what is Data Fetcher and kind of the technical components that we're going to cover in a few moments. Like just talk about what does Data Fetcher do, and without using acronyms like API or webhooks or things like that, like what is Data Fetcher?
Yeah, of course, sounds good. So the way I think of an API is like, if you think of a website, it's kind of like the or like the website is kind of like how a human reads data from a website,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the front end is all the sorry, that's also a technical term, but like when you
It's
go to a
okay.
website and what you see, that's kind of how you process that data.
Right.
An API is kind of like what's under the hood. So like how a website, if it wanted to get some, or like a platform, if it wanted to get some structured data from another platform.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, when you kind of sync any two things in Zapier or something like that, under the hood that uses an API. So all that is just a structured, kind of predictable way of saying this is how we send you some data. And the way you configure APIs like that is with URLs, very similar to websites, but then kind of other things as well, kind of like headers,
Mm-hmm.
parameters, and stuff, which I'm sure we'll get into. So all Data Fetcher is just a way to kind of configure those API requests, and then some kind of magic on the back end that basically turns what data you get back into Airtable fields and Airtable
Right.
records. And that's all it allows you kind of run those requests and then schedule them as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So how I think of Data Fetcher, and I'm really excited to jump in, is like within the Airtable ecosystem, if you will, you've got like Airtable Sync, which is like Airtable integrates directly for you things like Box, Jira, Salesforce, and then you have like apps like we showed yesterday on Noble that are like Airtable to Webflow, right? So it's just
Mm-hmm.
it's just that particular vertical, and I see Data Fetcher as between the other two, right? So it uses primitives that exist on the web, APIs or connectors, and that say like, well, actually, once you understand these building blocks, you can sync anything, right? So you can pull information from currency APIs or MailChimp or X SaaS software or push updates, right? So I think the difference is like instead of just like a plug and play with one particular application or one that's native, you're actually filling the gap between the two, which means like just learn this little bit of it's almost like paint by numbers. That's what we're gonna do today, and then you can just pretty much have harnessed that power of those sync any tools. Is that kind of seeing where you stand and how people should think about you versus other functionality in Airtable and other apps potentially?
Yeah, definitely. So I think there's definitely a spectrum, right? And so at the kind of easiest to use end, you've got Airtable Sync, and then maybe at the hardest end, you've got the scripting app. And my data
Right.
fetcher kind of sits somewhere in between those two things. So it's much easier than writing a custom script. For just a very simple like sync use case or something you'd use Airtable sync for, it's more complicated. And so I'd like definitely advise go for Airtable sync. But because there's thousands of APIs and there's thousands of different use cases, as well as the fact that like it lets you kind of create like two-way syncs with data fetcher, so you could do like posting data as well as pulling data. It's a lot more flexible. And so just in the same way that when you learn a little bit of scripting, it suddenly opens up like a whole new world of possibilities in Airtable. Just learning like a little bit about API requests, I mean, you can like do a load more like different stuff basically.
Yeah. So let me know in the chat how comfortable folks are with API requests. So if I told you like, hey, run this API request, would you feel comfortable doing it? Let me know in the chat. And, the goal for today, whether you're super comfortable, maybe you're just going to be like, oh, I take what map it into data fetcher kind of UI and understanding and those use cases. And if you're super like not really familiar with APIs, what I hope you take away from this is like, okay, well, how do I take an API that I want to integrate and put it into data fetcher language? So Penny, not so much. That's awesome. We're going to try to up level that a little bit by the end so that any API you see, you're just like, okay, I know what to do here. Okay, so with that, Andy, I'm going to jump in. We're going to jump into a base here. We've got Colleen, beginner as well. That's awesome. We're trying to up level that a little bit. And we're going to start with an overview of the base, of the use cases, of the first API we're going to jump into. And then we're going to, sync some stuff, do some requests. So let me know in the chat if you're excited. Here we're going to do some. You should see my base now. Actually, you should see Andy's face. I did it in the wrong order. There you go. Now you should see my base, and we are in Airtable. So we got Jay, beginner to intermediate, can read code, do a little bit of Postman, little Node.js. That's actually quite close to where I am, to be honest. Sanjuro 6 out of 10. Do stuff with Postman. We might actually pull out some Postman as well to learn today. But we're here in our base, and we've got like. Not a proper use case, but a perfect use case for like testing out a bunch of different APIs. So if you're interested in the base, go ahead and exclamation mark base in the chat. You can get access to this base. I do probably recommend you do it at the end. That way you're going to be able to have all of those API calls that we're going to run. So we've got Jim, not familiar at all. That's awesome. Okay, so our first use case here is going to be, how do I get currencies at a specific date? So let's say you run a company and you get a bunch of transactions into a table, and those transactions are in different currencies. So, on April, I think 4 is April 1st or January 4th, I don't know. You did £5 and then 100 euros at a different date, and you want to bring that back all into USD, right? So you want to say, let's bring that back. So you actually need to pull that information maybe at midnight to go pull all what the transactions were at that time. So tell me, kind of, Andy, why is this a good use case for data fetcher?
Sure, yeah. So one of the nice things about data fetcher is it lets you very easily like run a request for pull in a bit of data for each record in your base.
Right.
So rather than just like, having something that's perhaps like event driven or something that you'd use Zapier for. So like, I get a new payment in Stripe, email these 5 people. Maybe you've got something that only comes up like once a month or once a week or something. And you've got these kind of 100 transactions that you've imported from somewhere, and you need to perform or get a bit of data for each of those transactions or each of those records. And because you can kind of use values from the record to fetch specific data. So for example, here you mentioned the currency as well as the date. It just plays very nicely with that kind of that format of task.
Yeah. So here, like the alternative to what we're doing. So I just want to make sure people are like really clear as to when to use data fetcher. In this situation, we're saying we want to use data fetcher because maybe once a month we want to know what the exchange rate was for all of the transactions of this month. Another way to do this that is quite clunky would be like when the record is created, go ahead and write a script that calls an API that return. Like it's a lot of work, and data fetcher lets you do it once and then do it on a schedule. Another use case that we're not going to do here, but I think a lot of people were interested in, was like stock prices. Maybe you want to update what stock price is today versus when you bought it every day or every 10 minutes or every hour or whatever it is. That's another example. So whenever you find yourself saying, I want to do X every Y, where Y is like a time unit every day, every other day, every week, that usually makes it that data fetcher is the right tool. So in this case, we're going to say every day, or we're going to do it once and we're not going to do it on a schedule, but go and get the currency for this exchange rate at this date. But I guess, Andy, how do we get that information? Like, what tool out there are we going to use to get the exchange rate at a date for a currency?
Yeah. So normally the kind of first place you'd go to is just Google and just look for, currency exchange API, something like that. And for a common use case like this, there's going to be a bunch of different APIs. And so, yeah, there's like lots of different ones, and some are paid, some are free.
Which is your favorite? We're gonna do that one.
So my favorite is the Rates API, which is totally free. There's no authentication.
This one right here. So I'll drop that in the chat.
Right, so yeah, this is based on European Central Bank, and it's kind of, whereas some are paid if you want to do a certain number of requests, this one's just totally free, and it's very fast and stuff as well. It's accurate. So I think, yeah, it's a good one to use. And it's like, you can see there, it says it's always available. You can do 1 million requests a day. It's got the 30 most popular currencies.
Okay, so how do maybe I think before we get into data fetch, do you think it's, I'll let folks, do you want to go into data fetcher first, or should we kind of talk about this API, talk about the documentation, and then from that understanding go map it to data fetcher? What do you feel is easier for folks to understand?
Yeah, I would think have a look at the API and the documentation. But...
Okay. So I'm here in documentation, and I'm gonna talk through. I'm gonna try to talk through this. And you're gonna tell me if I'm right. I always kind of yeah. So Jay, we're definitely gonna do. Right. That's a great question, Colleen. We're gonna get into that in a bit. That's a great question, which is how do we know that the API works with data fetcher? And the answer is they all work, right? So that's the beauty of data fetcher, so that any API you can find, you can actually use data fetcher for. So we want to get past conversion rates, right? Because we want it at a specific date. So this is telling us we need to do a get call for rate/API/ put the date parameter, right? Am I saying that right? So that's one thing we need to keep in mind. We want this right here to be eventually replaced with formatted date, right? Which is just a formula field that takes the date string of the date. And then
so maybe what we could do is copy that into the browser and have a look at just
good point. You're totally right.
Sorry, so you'd remove the get
the
bit.
Get.
So
okay, so this is telling us the relative to euros, that £1 was 0.987 pounds was €1. I'm like harking back to my finance days. What we want is actually USD to be here. So we want to know what the value of that was in USD so we can do a multiplication, right? So otherwise it says, okay, for this date, these were the rates. So can folks see? I can zoom in a little bit. How's that? Is that better? Someone's very keen on exchange rates. So this is 2010 though, so I don't think it's a Brexit thing. So coming back here, we want the base. So we're actually saying, okay, well the base should be USD. So before the exclamation point. All right, let's do this. Okay, so base USD. Okay, so 0.62 pounds was worth 1 USD, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna want to return the right field. So we're actually gonna have to find this so we're gonna say, okay, do the API call for this date in this base, but then find the right currency in this right here, in this object or this,
Mm.
to return the right one for that specific transaction. Is that right?
No, that is right. Yeah. So this is somewhere where um, one thing we want to kind of aim for is always picking out the same field from our response, right?
Right.
So rather than always having the base as US dollars and then
Uh-huh.
picking out a different response field each time, that's going to probably be quite fiddly or
You're
quite
right.
problematic. But
Yeah.
another way we can do it is changing the base each time and then always
Right.
picking USD from the response, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
that makes sense. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's
If you
so
change the base
this
to GBP,
yeah, so it's actually to answer Colleen's question, it was like, how do you know that the API works? Well, this is something that I've learned to learn, I guess, is that the API will always work. The way the API is returned, and for you to like finagle it almost into something that returns what you want, is the actual challenge, right? And let me, Andy, let me kind of translate what you just said and tell me if I'm right here. It's going to be hard for us to look at this object and say, go find the right transaction, the right currency. So go find CAD, go find NOK, go find, Brazilian real. But what's easier is actually put Brazilian real as the base, and then you know that you're always going to look for USD. That is easier. So what I'd love to do is actually let's do both when we get into data fetcher and understand why one is better. So maybe start with the one that's good, right? The good way to do it. And then we'll do the improper way, if you will, just so folks understand the difference between the two. Does that feel right?
yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. Okay. So now that we have like a good understanding of the API, we're going to put the date, and then we're going to go and get the base, and the base is going to be what changes, right? We're going to pull in the USD currency. So let's actually kind of add in data fetcher. Important to know, data fetcher is an app, right? So you go to your apps dashboard, open apps dashboard, add an app, go find data fetcher, add it in, add the app. And we could talk a little bit about security. I'm sure folks are going to have a question. So once we run the API, let's talk about security. I'm going to hide my browser here just for a sec, just so I'm not showing you guys my password, although
You're on the
in.
sign up.
Yep, there we go. Okay, so all I did there while I was hiding you guys was just sign in, put my password in, and let's put this full screen. Let's make this full screen. Okay, so here we are. Very simply, we need to create a request. So a request is an API call. So we're going to request information from that rates API. So we're creating that request. And talk me through, for folks who are familiar with Postman, this actually feels very similar. But Andy, talk me through, what do I need to do and what are the different pieces of this?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, the first thing to mention is just the sign in and the sign up. So
Right.
one of the reasons I made data fetcher is that often with APIs, you'll be putting kind of secrets in there or tokens or things that actually give people a lot of power that should be kept private. And so you did that in like a script that
Oh, Andy's breaking up a little bit. So what I'm going to translate what Andy just said, which is if you put it in, Andy's audio a little bad. So if you put your API call in the scripting app, is that your API key is going to be visible by everyone. So by putting it into data fetcher, you're actually hiding it. So Andy, your Wi-Fi is a little slow, so give it a sec to come back. There we go. I think Andy is back.
Yeah.
All right, y'all should hear Andy there. So what I just said is that by putting your login in data fetcher, you're actually not hiding. You're hiding your API key, which won't be the case if you put it in scripting, which will be accessible by anyone in the base. So just another advantage of using data fetcher. Okay, so here folks can hear you. If you want to refresh that video link, once you feel your Wi-Fi is good, we can get your video back, but we can continue like this. Folks can still hear you. Okay, so next, Andy, is the request URL, right? So let me go into this API call that we did, right? And we're essentially going to take this call right here. And I'm wondering, do I need that /API? I guess the answer is yes. So this is my base request.
Yeah, so that on the left is your base URL, and then you've got the kind of the endpoint after that is what is known as
right here.
And yeah, so I mean this actually because this is changeable. This is what's known as a path parameter. So it just means a bit of like information that's kind of part of the URL, and then the final bit where it says base, and then we've set it's a Brazilian real. That's known as a query parameter.
Okay.
Yeah, we can basically, if we copy the entire URL in.
Whoop, there we go. Copy pasting. Okay.
Perfect. Cool. So yeah, what that will do essentially is run the request just for this kind of this date and this currency. So what we could do is just run that and show how that works, and then show how to make it dynamic.
Okay. So first we need an output table. So we want transactions, right? View, let's just go grid view with all. So Jay, you're right. We're going to change that date to make it dynamic, and we just want to get the API call to see what the answer is. So we're going to overwrite. So I'm just going through the settings. I don't think we need to worry about that. Let's do run.
Well, hang on. Let's go to update. Sorry.
Update. Okay.
So, yeah. Overwrite it'll get rid of any records that it doesn't spit out. So it's a little bit. It can be a bit destructive. So update's a little bit safer.
Okay. Let's do run. Okay. So now it's given. Okay. This is kind of like the response. So if I close this, can I see the response somewhere in the? No, I need to run it here. Okay.
So you can do if you close it again.
Yeah.
You can click that determine fields and open field mapping, and that'll do the same thing. So yeah, a feature that's coming soon is going to be on this modal is going to be the ability to see the actual response.
Right. Okay. You got a lot to build. That's really fine. So these are all of the responses. So it returns the base, which in this case would always be, Brazilian real. We're not having it dynamic. And then the rate relative to the base for each one of these outputs. And what we're essentially saying is that we always want to keep USD, right? So we just want to keep USD, but make that rate dynamic, right? So do we want to create a field? Do we want to use, so when I say that I want to keep one of the fields from the API call, I can decide which field I want to map it to. So it is going to be a number, and we want the table field exchange rate. Is that right? Okay, so we already have that. Let's confirm. And now it's just gonna, I think if I'm not mistaken, okay, it just gave us that first API call, which is, it didn't actually use the currency. It just gave us 1 real, 2 USD, which is not what we want, right? So let's go back here.
So now what we want to do is make everything dynamic, right?
Right, exactly.
So the first thing we want to make dynamic is the date. So if you get rid of that.
So how do I make that a field, the value of each field in my table?
Yeah, so the first thing to do is to put your cursor there, as you have, and get rid of like the hard-coded value. And then if you click those dots on the right, then we've got 2 options here. So we can either insert data from the table, or we can insert in variables. So we could have variables saved on an account. So we obviously want a reference to the table. And we want to use transaction table, and then select the field. So we actually want the date, right?
Right, date is the one that's variable. Okay, so the first record for 1, that's perfect. I like that little preview. It's a little cramped, but I like it.
It's a little preview, yeah.
Confirm.
And so just to make this really clear, if we wanted like just one value, just to run it on one record, we might select an individual record.
Right.
But because we're running it for every record.
Interesting. So what I had there was that we're now, so you're saying that when there's this 3 little stars, with the name of the field. That's telling you that that is going to be dynamically inserted for the record, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And if I want to recreate this URL, I need to put the question mark after. So like that. So base equal. And here we want another variable. We actually want the value. So transaction, doing that again. Let's go into, I think it's currency. Let me check. Yeah, GBP, Euro, CAD, NOK, Brazil. Let's confirm. Okay, so let me just kind of, should I zoom in or can you guys see? Does that look good?
Yeah.
So Jay, this is to your question. The date is now dynamic. So for each record, it's going to go ahead and insert transactions date and then go and get the value out of base. Put the value of transactions currency into base. And that's recreating this URL right here. So this one right here. And that's going to give us this response, right? So for the first one, let's kind of run it in the, let me save this for now.
So just
I'm trying to go slowly.
We actually want the format date. So we want the date
you're right.
get from Airtable is actually just is a date object or a date field, but we want the
you're totally right. It's the formatted date.
Yeah.
Awesome. You just saved me from a mistake. I appreciate that. Thank you. Although some people just come for the mistakes to the stream, so someone's disappointed right now that we got that fixed before we ran it. Okay, so let me save that. I'm just going to save. And I just want to do one more time what the first API call is going to be. So we're going to take date, and we're going here, and we're replacing this path parameter with the date. Right? Actually, let me format it properly. So that is 01/04/2021. Is that how it's supposed to be formatted? No. 2020 04/01. Right? And then our base is GBP. So I'm just redoing GBP. There we go. And then we're going to pull out USD. So let me find USD here. There we go. So it should return that 1 British pound is worth 1.37 blah, blah, blah USD. That's what we expect right here.
There's one final thing we need to do, because
go ahead.
When we click run, it's just going to run a single API request.
Okay.
Because we've got a whole view that we want to run it on. We need to actually tell the app to run it on multiple records.
Right.
So if you go down to the bottom and then click on advanced. Right
Got
down
it.
the bottom again. Yeah. So
run on multiple records.
Exactly. Yeah.
So transactions. And then grid view. Oh, that's cool. So if I just run it, it actually just runs for a particular record. But here, if I run it now, it's actually going to dynamically insert that you've actually put as one of the parameters of data fetcher.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Anything else that folks should know about before we run?
I don't think so. Just a small point with that, being able to set the views like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, like when we run it now, it's going to populate all the transactions with data. And then it's kind of the question of like, well, if we wanted to add some more transactions, where would we put those and what view would we put them in?
Right.
And so a small thing you can do is kind of create filtered views. So, for example, this is like, I don't know, to process transactions, something like that.
Right.
And transactions without an exchange rate, then we could use those views here in the output and in the multiple records. But it's a minor point.
No, that makes total sense. So we'll do that after. We'll do a view and then we'll rerun it for that view. Okay. Yeah. So we've got the stressful moment. We're gonna run. I hope this works. I'm pretty confident because if it doesn't work, I mean, we'll fix it. But let's click run. All right, run. Okay, so it looks like it's running. It's run on all of them. Okay, and now we have our exchange rates. There we go. Easy as that. We've now have the exchange rate, and then we're doing one times the other to get the value of this particular transaction in USD. So it's just that easy. I do think one more time I want to explain what we did with the mapping. So open field mapping. What we said is you're going to return a rate for each kind of base currency that I want, but the only one that I want is USD. So we just map that field to exchange rate, and now we're getting that information here. So before we say that this was successful, let's imagine like, okay, we're adding in transactions. So let me do like 2 or 3 transactions here. Let's say $30 in CAD on March 14th. Name your favorite currency in the chat if you want. 60 in, let me make sure I got the right, New Zealand dollars. We're a very international company on the 23rd. And then 200 GBP for our Brexit fans. There we go. And now, we're at the end of the month. So we're going to create a new view. Let me give ourselves a little space here. A new grid view that we're going to call unprocessed transactions. Is that how you write unprocessed? Why is he giving me
2 S's at the end?
You're right. English is not my first language, so I get a pass. And then we're going to filter down so where exchange rate is empty. Right, so we're saying these are the kind of transactions we want to run. And then going back into apps, going into data fetcher. Actually, no, I don't want to go into the settings of data fetcher. I want to go into this get currency. And in the advanced settings, if I'm not wrong, I want to only run to a specific view. Oh, here we go. Output view. Is that it?
Yeah, so there's 2 bits. You can set the output view, and then also in the advanced settings, the run on multiple records. So hang on, just scroll up to the top.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that looks good. So yeah, we just need to go down to multiple records, set transactions, and unprocessed. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we could run it again, and it should work. There we go. So run it. Boom. 1, and you could see in the background it's leaving the view because they're no longer unprocessed transactions. We can go here, grid view. These are all transactions. So I think with that we can do a little success. That was definitely a success there. Boom. Pretty proud of that one. Andy, do you want to refresh your video? So just go back to the link that I sent you. That way folks can't see your video right now. I'm just got that note in the chat.
Sure.
If you can refresh that, I'll have it refreshed on my end. And that way, yeah, we did it. We did our first one. We're going to do another one here in the next 15 minutes, which is just another API, just so folks feel very comfortable with, running any type of API in Airtable. So, so someone at the beginning wanted a membership platform. We're actually going to do Stripe, but again, it's all very simple. It's very similar. So once you run one, you're going to be able to run any. Let me.
How's the video?
It's there we go. Video is back. Awesome. Great. Okay. So next one is Stripe. So maybe talk a little bit about, so I've got an empty table here. Andy, talk a little bit about why folks would sync to Stripe. And what is Stripe? Maybe let's do those 2 things. You can do what is Stripe and why would folks want to sync to Stripe?
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it, but for anyone that doesn't, Stripe is an online payment processor. So it's commonly used by subscription businesses. So for example, for data fetcher on the pro plans, when people have subscriptions, I use Stripe to handle that. The reason people like it is it's a really easy to use API has a really easy to use API, both for kind of fetching your data and fetching it into something like Airtable, and for actually creating those subscriptions. And they handle billing and free trials and upgrades and downgrades and stuff like that. And so, yeah, Stripe has some quite nice reporting stuff built into it. So you can see kind of how, I don't know how many customers you've got and stuff like that. But maybe, for example, you want to pull in all your Stripe invoices, all your subscriptions or your customers to then do some other actions on those on those customers. So, for example, you might want to pull in people that have cancelled their plans recently and send them emails asking why,
Right.
or people just signed up and send them a link to your help center or something like that. So you might pull that Stripe data into Airtable to then kind of do other actions like on each customer.
So I think what I hope people take away from this example. So we've got this example where I'm in my Stripe. I have a Stripe account, let's say, and I've got invoices, and those invoices can be draft, open, paid, uncollectible, or void, right? And let's imagine that money's tight, and it gets to a point where I want to see every open invoice in Airtable, so I can be more granular as to like, have I followed up with this person? Have I showed up at their house? What can I do to kind of get paid for that specific invoice? And so our goal here might be like every day or every week or every end of month, right before the big bill comes in, can I sync all of my open invoices? Now, that might not be your use case, right, for folks watching, and that's okay. Like, our goal here is just to kind of show you how to read an API, get a sense of what's possible with it, and then go ahead and integrate any of your APIs. So let's imagine I'm in my Stripe. One of the calls is list all invoices, right? So this is let me see if I can go to my Stripe dashboard. Okay, I have my invoices, right? So I have in Stripe, let me see. There we go. In my invoices right here, I have these past due invoices, right? And what I'd like is that every day at midnight, every week, to have each one of the information around these invoices pulled into Airtable so I can be more granular. So what we hope to kind of pull in is the amount, the invoice number, and the customer. Those are the fields that we'd like in Airtable. So let's go ahead and kind of create those fields in Airtable. There we go. Just going to delete these as per usual. I should have a shortcut to delete those. I know Victoria. So I'm going to say customer email, customer. Give me email field. And then I want amount. Let's give you, currency feels right. And then what else did I want here? I wanted amount, customer, maybe just invoice number. That way I can sync it back if ever that updates invoice number. It's gonna be a single line text. All right. Okay. So as last time, let's go ahead and read the API together. I'm learning how to read APIs here. So essentially, okay, the endpoint is get/v1. Let me zoom in here. /invoices. Snag the curl. What do you mean? Click to do I just copy? Right here?
Yeah. So the curl is basically a kind of standardized way of representing the API call.
Okay.
And so you can see it there. It's it starts with curl and then it has some other stuff after it.
Okay.
Datafetcher's got an import from curl command. So what we can do is just copy that to the clipboard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dope.
So,
okay. So let's go into here. Let's create a new request. Man,
so if you just go
you make
back.
it so easy. I appreciate that. Let me save. Go back. Create
So
request.
if you go, rather than click create, sorry, if you just go back. If you just full screen a second.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Cool. And then if you click import at the top.
Let me just refresh here. My computer's a little slow.
Sure.
Full screen. Oh, okay, we're good. So import right here.
Cool. So you click import, and then there's two tabs. So if you paste it.
Let's not. Can I remove this limit?
I just not touch anything.
Okay. Okay, we'll remove it.
We can remove it after.
Okay, dude, cool. That's dope.
So you can see it's all set up.
Is that a standard, just copy paste from? Is this click to copy curl standard across API documentation?
So good API documentation.
Okay.
um, Often they'll show curl examples, and then Stripe's API docs are really nice because they actually put your specific key in there, like your
Yeah.
API key,
Right.
based on the fact that you're logged into Stripe. So yeah, a lot of API docs will have it.
That's amazing. I did not know. I swear I did not know this, and this is really going to make my life much easier from here on out. And I appreciate that you. So what that you integrated it natively. So what this does is it gets the URL, right? The base URL for the request, gives us our authorization, right? Our
Mhm.
API key, and kind of just inputs all the headers that we need. And so
Yeah.
now we can just kind of we want to run this to Stripe invoices
Yeah. One to
grid
look at
view.
is the body briefly. So if you look
Yeah.
at the body, so you
Oh,
can see
right.
that limit that you wanted to get rid of. Yeah, we could either increase it or
Right.
yeah, increasing it
Perfect.
works.
Okay. Stripe invoices, grid view. We want to update. Actually, we don't. We want to append. Right. We don't have those invoices already there. Maybe if we ever want to get an updated status, we want to update. But in this case, we just want to append. Go and get all that information, if I'm not mistaken. And we want to run for no in. Do we want to run for multiple records? No, we have no records, so it should return all of them. Yeah.
That's right.
Is
Yeah,
that
we just want to make one API request.
okay? So I can run, and then okay, here is okay. So here now it's actually returning. Okay, we're gonna filter all because there's a lot of them, right? So Stripe, you can get very granular on Stripe as to every single field, right? So it's you can get invoice level, right? So account name. So let me just try to find customer email is what we want to pull out, right? So that's the first one. So let's go ahead and find that one in here. Data dot
So
customer
you can
email.
search at the top. Yeah.
Oh
You
yeah. Okay.
can
Awesome.
also search at the top. Um, and then you could also change, yeah, you could change the data type. Nice.
There we go. And so the next one we want to pull in is what did we say we wanted to pull in? We wanted to pull in invoice number. Oh no, it's going to search. Oh, I can search it here. Nice. Invoice PDF URL invoice item. No. Let me see if I find number. Receipt data.number. Let's see what that is. Data.number. So that is the data right here. Am I in the wrong
I
data?
think it's actually the data above that. I think
Yeah.
I think the whole thing
Data.
comes back as data.
Right.
Yeah.
And dot number should be a little further after lines. Data dot number. There we go. This is what we want. Right? So data dot number. We're going to map that to use invoice number. What is the last one we wanted was amount. So this is actually from Stripe. There's like 50 amounts, if I remember correctly. So we want the amount. So this is data dot data dot amount dot one dot amount.
Yeah. So I think it's data.lines.data.amount.
Okay, there we go. So I just want to break that down for folks in the future, right? So what Data Fetcher is doing here is that it's kind of, am I right saying flattening the JSON? Is that what we're doing? We're essentially
Exactly.
saying,
Yeah.
here's how you navigate this. Every time there's a tab, it's a dot. So we're going to go into data. We're doing an array, so there might be multiple levels of data. We're going data dot, and then we want to go lines. So data dot lines dot into data again. So data dot lines dot data, and then amount. But we want to go into the first of the array. So that's where the one comes from. So data dot lines dot data dot one dot amount. Easy peasy.
Yeah,
no problem.
Yeah, it will be a lot
wanna-
nicer when you can see them alongside each other. But one thing to note on this is the actual number that comes back from Stripe isn't like that's the number of cents rather than number of pounds. So I think They probably make a note of that somewhere. But if we
Okay.
map that to a currency field, then that's going to give us $500.
Set
It should be
dollars.
$5.
Okay, so let
Yeah.
me.
So what we've got.
Should I create a field for now?
Yeah, I'd create a number field.
And we're gonna call this cents,
Yeah.
right? And then we'll map it to a currency field using a formula.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So confirm. And just for folks, like, you have a lot of other fields you can go and get from the Stripe, right? So this is just an example of how you map that API to this. Let's go ahead and confirm. Okay.
Just one thing to mention on that. So you can map it to like all sorts of different Airtable fields. So you can map it to URL fields. There's also one that I did recently as single select. So say if we had like a status, we had a status that could come back as a few different things.
Yeah, let's check what that is. So do we have, let's run it and then we'll upgrade it. So I'm seeing a few things. One thing I'm seeing is that it just gave us back examples. It didn't give us back our exact, and that's probably just because I'm using the Stripe test API key, right? So let me just go into here. There should be an API here somewhere. Developers, API keys. This is this is the test, right? So is this the one I should use right here?
Yeah, I think that's, if you just go back to the docs, to the Stripe API docs, is that the one it gave you?
This is, I think, just a test one. I don't think it's importing my actual sk_test. Let me hide folks here for a moment. I'll get my API key sorted out. I mean, this is a test account, so.
Okay, if you click reveal test key.
Yeah, I can grab this.
Is that the same one or is that different?
No, it's a different one. It's a different one. Okay, let me bring you back. It's okay if folks have. It's not a real Stripe. It's not a real Stripe thing, so we can just bring it in right here.
Okay. This is where it gets a little bit complicated.
Go ahead.
So because that.
The curl thing.
Because the curl thing kind of transformed that user into a basic header here. I'm not 100% this is going to work, but let's try it.
Okay, just copy paste my API key here.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. This is what we come here for. This is mistakes people are going to run in the wild. So let me run this. You did not provide an API key. Authorization bearer. Okay, so maybe if I just put bearer in front here. Let me run that. Okay, that worked.
Oh, yeah. Right.
You're surprised that it worked. I'm proud right now. I'm pretty proud. Okay, so what we did there is we got the bearer, and now we actually have our transactions out of my actual Stripe account. Right? So let me delete this. Let's delete these as well. Yeah, and I have all of my different transactions right here. So invoice cents, let's turn this into an amount. Formula. So it's going to be, amount in dollars. It's going to be a formula field, and we're just taking cents divided by 100. And we're going to format that into a currency. There we go. And so now I have my transactions. And every time I run this, it's going to bring in all of my transactions. Last note, and we're going to end here because we are near the hour here, is that let's say I only wanted to bring in open invoices, right? So that's one of the parameters of the URL. So I can actually add that. Let's go here. And if I'm not mistaken, it should be here in parameters, status, open.
Yeah, so you can see it update the URL as you type.
Oh, okay, awesome, right here. Okay, great, perfect.
Yes, if you.
Let me go quickly here into customers or payments, and I want to close some out so not all of them come in, right? So invoices, balances. Is it payments? Where is it? Customers, invoices. And let's say this one, change invoice status. Let's say this one's paid. So this was, 002.
Cool. Now what we could do here, just quickly, is rather than just pulling in the data and appending it, we could actually update it. So we could actually say,
right,
let's keep these two things in sync. So the way we do that is we change the write mode to update to overwrite. So from append to overwrite. So overwrite just means it'll delete any kind of extra records. And then
awesome.
In the advanced settings, we kind of need to define. We need to tell data fetcher like how to differentiate these two things, right? So what's a unique field for every single record, and so we can use update based on field. We can set that to invoice number, which will work. Usually APIs will give you an ID, which is even nicer, but invoice number will work. So yeah, we can use that, and then if we run it, it'll delete one of our records.
Right, it should delete 002. Hopefully this one, or whichever. It should delete one. So let's go ahead and run that.
Yeah, one we deleted.
Boom. We did it. It just deleted all of our. So every time we click run, it goes ahead and only keeps us unpaid invoices. And yeah, we did it. Let's give it another success. That feels like a success right there. Boom. All right. Well, here, folks, that was kind of what I wanted to show. Any kind of parting words here, Andy? Would I before you kind of jump in, would I encourage go play around with it? Go and get into Airtable, install it, get your favorite API. And Andy, where could folks reach you if they have questions, if they want to talk to you about APIs or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much for the demo. There's a bunch more features. I've got a fairly comprehensive help center that people can see all the different features in. We've also just launched a YouTube channel. So if you search YouTube for data fetcher Airtable, there's a bunch of kind of example videos up there already. And then Twitter, it's data_fetcher. And my personal Twitter is ClokeGed. So
awesome.
Yeah, that's everything.
So yeah, let me just drop that in the chat. Go ahead and keep in touch with Andy. Andy, I'm personally really excited about this. What I'm most excited about is let us know what you're thinking. I want you to come back and show us, 50 use cases of what folks are building. So huge thanks for everyone joining. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Andy. Really means a lot that you took the time out of your day to show us Data Fetcher. I'm excited about it. I hope you all are excited about it. And with that, I think next week we're going to talk about webhooks. I want to do a whole show about webhooks, using the new incoming webhook trigger. So hope to see you next week. Back here, same time, same place, different people. But yeah, really appreciate you coming on, Andy. Really appreciate you all coming on. This was huge fun. And I will see you all next week with Automate All the Things. Thanks, Anjiro. Thanks all. I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.